What if the world itself is sacred?
Monarchs are the signature insect, if you will, from the North American continent.
They are the only butterfly to migrate a great distance. And if the migration starts in Canada and goes all the way down to Mexico, that's between 2,000 and 3,000 miles. A little tiny butterfly going that far is amazing.
They are harbingers of summer.
Here in Minnesota, we're in both the area where they reproduce, we're also in the path of those migrating from the north headed back south. So we're right in a perfect place for the monarchs.
Here's the thing, right? I mean, okay, we need bees. We don't want to lose bees. But bees aren't alone in the world. Bees are part of a community, and the community of bees includes butterflies. So where you have bees, you have butterflies. Where you have bees and butterflies, you have beetles. Where you have bees, butterflies, and beetles, you have, wrens. You have chipping sparrows.
Back in 1996, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we told everybody that pollinators were in trouble, especially our monarchs.
We have a crisis. If we want to save the monarch, we got to get on the bandwagon.
Generally considered to be threats both on the wintering grounds and on the breeding grounds in loss of common milkweed.
There is a crisis in monarchs.
And I think we all need to be aware of the seriousness of this.
Everyone in western Minnesota, it seems, has a monarch story.
We've been tagging monarchs for 17 years here at the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center. So this is where we had monarch caterpillars. The monarch, which is one of the pollinators that is in serious decline, has been declining for a lot of years. They've been munching on the plant here, but it's now about 80 degrees and they have hidden on us. So I don't see them. It's been weather related. It's been logging in their winter homes and GMOs, which are changing our way we do our farming. So we've been getting rid of milkweed, their main plant that they need to lay their eggs on. This is the common milkweed. See how small the little flowers are and delicate? This is the showy milkweed. Look at how big the flowers are on that one. 99% of the prairie is gone. It is into towns and roads and farms and industry and people's yards. So we're the big area that needs to step it up and get more forbs out there. This is the long-headed coneflower, and this is what is going to have more nutrients for our butterflies, this one here. Isn't that gorgeous? Some people think that's a weed. No, it's a prairie plant. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we've been mandated to bring in more forbs in our prairie restorations.
Well, we're getting set up to do a prescribed burn here.
The wind direction is the most challenging part of the forecast. Light winds early this morning.
We're standing right here. North would be this way. We're expecting northeast winds. In managing grasslands, they benefit from having periodic disturbance. And by disturbance, I mean haying, mowing, grazing, prescribed fire. Those are all forms of disturbance that stimulate plants to put up new growth above ground, additional root growth below the ground too. So fire is particularly effective at that. So this is really a cattail choked wetland, and there's some wildlife that will use it as it is.
Historically, through time, fires have happened, whether it's lightning started or native communities might have started fires.
Go ahead. In the short term, we can do things like plant milkweeds. For pollinators in general, we need to take a broad view, landscape level approach and do what we can to get more flowering plants out there.
Monarchs are the color of fire. It's the color of warning. To predators, it says, stay away, I'm dangerous. And to us, it says, hey, look at me. I love the way that monarchs, they have a camouflage when they close their wings, and then when they open them, they can flash us. Maybe what they're saying to us is, we're fierce, and we're adaptable, and we need you to pay attention.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about monarchs. I said the monarchs just left Mexico. Those are the monarchs that migrated from here last fall. They flew to Mexico, they've been down there all winter, and now they're on the move. They're headed back to Texas. They'll lay their eggs, and then they'll die. They finally die. They've lived 8 months. And then those eggs will hatch, and you have caterpillars and butterflies, and they'll move north. Their offspring. This is the generation that gets to us, the third generation. And that varies with, how strong they are, or what the winds are, or what the weather is like, but we get the third or fourth generation up here.
So you need to make your kite shape, right? Number one, we'll make our kite shape, and you can make it like this if you want to. Before you start anything, this is a lot about symmetry and balance, right? Which are some of your principles. Anybody know? Principles for design.
So fold it first?
Okay.
Like this?
We've made little books before, and it's kind of fun. They had to fold the paper, then they had to include the eggs, the caterpillar, the pupa, and then the butterfly emerging. Sterling, how many do you use? You can do butterfly or regular kite? And we also talked about, what was happening, the incredible decrease in the monarch population. So they have an idea.
He's going away from me.
You're in control.
Go ahead.
I've done dresses for a long time. I use the dress as a symbol. This is one of these that look like dancers. They're dancing, so like a fancy shawl dancer. A lot of the dances, all the different dances have symbols, references to nature. The fancy shawl itself represents a butterfly. She's dancing up a storm, and they're praying for everyone. And not just people. They're praying for the plants and the animals and all the beings.
Forbs are wildflowers in the prairie language. And since we started the greenhouse here at the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center, our main focus for our forbs that we grow with the kids are pollinators. So today we're growing the columbine for the woodland, which is good for hummingbirds and bees. And you can do it in your own garden. I mean, you can grow these plants yourself. You don't have to have a greenhouse. You put them in the windowsill and, or you get the seeds and you self-sow. It's 5 feet by 5 feet. It's not very big at all. And it has maybe 10 different species of plants. different colors, yellows, whites, purples. I go around my prairie and I grab the seeds in the fall and I just throw them in, and when they come up in the spring I go, oh, I planted that by the seed. So it's an exciting thing that we can all do. That's what we're going to need to save the monarch, is we're going to need everybody in their backyards growing a little patch of milkweed, and then we have to grow some of the fall plants for them to migrate. And I think we gardeners, we home gardeners, can save the monarchs. I'm making that statement because I believe it. We're going to do it because we can. We're the ones.
Look at this spinach. Loves the sunshine today. We have some little dwarf peas, and then actually some carrots are popping up. And something I did new this year was I seeded clover in all of the rows. It keeps down the weeds, keeps in the moisture, but it also, the clover flowers attract pollinators. This has been my biggest challenge. We've been here 10 years, and the person that had this house before planted a lot of Kentucky bluegrass, which is, I grew up that way, and as much as I love a nice lawn, I don't want to be spending all my time mowing. So my challenge is how do I turn this into a little prairie that has flowers, and the bees love it, and the butterflies love it. If a monarch is going to make it from Canada down to Mexico, it's going to need a lot of little rich places all along the way. I feel like it's very conservative here. You know, upper Midwest, kind of the heavy influx of the Scandinavian, it's kind of one generation or less removed from being kind of farmy and hand to mouth in a way. And that's just the reality of the history of farmers, is you had to, you know, tighten your belt, run a tight ship, keep a tight budget. You had to do something with the land. Controlling nature rather than working a little bit more in harmony with the processes. And you can't just set it aside for bees and butterflies. Come on. So I guess the challenge for you is, how do you get people to see that the monarch butterfly is a worthy thing? This is worthy of setting aside land and putting energy into, because it is just a beautiful thing. I think so. But convincing the farmer over here that that's worth it, that's going to be a challenge.
Well, Morning Sky Greenery is a native wildflower and grass business. We've been growing native plants for 23 years, and they're fantastic for butterflies and birds and habitat for wildlife. A couple of years ago we had a monarch butterfly right in the middle of the doorway of the greenhouse, and it felt very special to us because every time we'd go through the door you felt like it was almost like mistletoe. When you're choosing plants to provide habitat for the monarch butterfly, you need to consider the life cycle. And that is the egg stage, the larval stage, the pupal stage, and the adult butterfly. So the adult butterfly needs to find a place to lay their eggs. The monarch butterfly is host specific to the milkweed. The caterpillar will chew the leaves. There's toxins in the plant, and that will actually render itself toxic to birds. This one here is just a common milkweed. It's Asclepias syriaca, but there are many different kinds of milkweeds. So you might choose something like Asclepias tuberosa, which is the butterfly weed. It has an orange flower. It's very showy. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful choice for a garden.
There we go.
We bought the house in 1986. That area was all lawn and very, very difficult to mow. And so that's when we started this original bed. You'll see some things in here that are native, some that are not. That's a native bergamot. very good for bees and hummingbirds and butterflies. Those are lanceolate coreopsis or tick seed. This is a wonderful midsummer bloomer. They do well in dry sandy soil, which we have a lot of here. Yarrow, people either love it or they hate it. It is a very good butterfly plant. This is oxeye sunflower. This is lavender hyssop. They love hyssop. Solidago goldenrod, many, many, many species. They're volunteers, but I just let them go. Once I find things that grow well, I tend to just stick with them because it helps to keep the weeds down. There's a skipper butterfly on the zinnia. Do you see it? This is red milkweed. Some call it swamp milkweed.
Good, that's pretty.
It's beautiful stuff, and it's okay to mix natives and domestics. You know, I don't think that there's any book that will tell you shalt not. That's one of the beauties of really doing, you know, things like this, is that you can have a lot of different textures and colors and combinations and patterns, and it's okay, you know, in my book.
We have two boys who are very outdoorsy, and so we said we should pick up a parcel that would be a deer hunting parcel. It's an 80 acre parcel. We bought it probably 14 years ago.
There's an American copper. Got a buckeye. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Huh. It is. It is.
We tapped into the WHIP program, Wildlife Habitat Improvement Program. And so now what we're trying to do with it is not just let the grasses take over, but to accentuate that with a lot of native grasses, native flowers.
You know, a lot of it was things that I had at home.
And this is just a bigger canvas. You get a feeling of satisfaction on just leaving something better than when you started. I just come up here and spend a lot of time and just do stuff. And it's sort of a nirvana. You see monarchs all summer, basically anywhere in this part of the state. I spent a long time up here last summer with all my thistling, and I don't think I saw a monarch all summer long. And I was concerned that they might not be able to recover. And of course, the monarchs is the ones, the attention getters. You know, I think we're very influential on what happens with Mother Earth. And you know, we have the ability to choose to be a negative influence or a positive influence. You know, you don't have to be Jacques Cousteau. You can just do your one little part.
If all that monarchs bring us is beauty, I wanted to find out, why is it that beauty matters?
I've always been intrigued by the gathering of monarch butterflies, and I finally decided I would try to do a print. All art is spiritual in a sense. It goes deeper than what you just physically see. They're usually high enough off the ground to be safe, I guess. And there's 100 of them or more will land on this tree. One lands and another one lands, and then they start to land on each other. It makes an interesting pattern.
One of the things that I really like about this print, I mean, it reads as a group of monarchs, but if you look closely at it, it's really very abstracted. It's kind of like how magic tricks are done. He's just putting shapes and patterns down, and our brains read that as butterflies.
What were the birds?
Oh, they'd be snow geese.
They were the snow geese.
Yeah.
Just like the monarchs, hundreds and hundreds.
You always think of a butterfly, how it can fly and maneuver in the sky, and some of them soar. Have they ever tested how fast a butterfly could fly?
They can zip around pretty fast, like that one that you released.
You want it on your finger?
It's the beauty of that. It should not be destroyed.
Around here, I could count on my two hands the monarchs that I've seen around. We grow organically. We have all kinds of butterfly-friendly plants, and we haven't been finding any caterpillars at all. For me, my art is about healing myself on a sort of spiritual level. The way that we farm, I feel like that's about me getting to eat well. But as you drive around here, it's monoculture in all directions for the most part, and farms that are getting bigger and bigger, and so that can be pretty disheartening. I mean, that can feel kind of hopeless.
Back 40 years ago, the county had between 12 and 13,000 residents. Mm-hmm. Now we're under 8. There aren't hardly any kids anymore.
Yeah, right. So I said, I am willing to paint a portrait for any farmer who wants to take, I think I said 1,000 acres of corn out and restore wetlands. Okay, that would be a lot of land. I began to get responses. Would you go for 2 acres over by Benson? I got an uncle who, and a lot of people who are trying to restore a lot of small corners of the world around here.
This is where there was a monarch caterpillar munching here, and I saw it for a couple days and then it disappeared. But you can see the pods are starting already, because about a week or a week and a half ago is when these were blooming still, and all the pollinators were coming. And here's those sow thistles. That patch is doing just fine. There they go. Planting them all over.
Monarch. 7 generations north to south and north again. 7 generations in one circuit. No time for shadows. Across the continent, 7 bodies, 1 body on maple. Small shadows, body on body, 1 circuit. What faith in beginning? 7 bodies, 1 body. It's so amazing. Small shadows, body on body. We forget how many stories we as humans have that maybe we're not all part of, or we might be a small part of the story. But we're sharing these stories with one another from one generation to the next. What faith in beginning? So that's my own personal metaphor, monarch metaphor.
Enough jelly?
Yeah. Elderberry. Mike Phil.
everything from the land.
So did you plant those or?
No, birds did. My birds take care of me. My mother-in-law took me out picking choke cherries all the time because they said it would prevent me from starving if we ever had depression. I got my wild grape. That's, I think, at the farm. This is my choke cherry from last year. Just have a taste. Got dandelion. Everything's wild.
Oh, those are cool.
Which makes it really
Those are
good.
Black raspberries?
Yep. They're the wild black raspberries. The birds planted that. I didn't do nothing to do with it. I get to eat them. That smells good. I can smell it in my bedroom windows right over here. I love butterflies. When I was a little girl and 12, they were all migrating and getting ready, just loaded in our backyard in our apple tree. I went and caught them in a fruit jar. Very delicately, so I wouldn't rub anything off their wings. And I went and put them in my bedroom. My mother opened the door. She had a kit fit. There go legs all over my curtains. I laid down in the bed and watched them for quite a while before I let them all loose.
As a plant ecologist, I can tell you that when a monarch lands on, this is the inflorescence or group of flowers, it's going to be probing with its mouth parts for nectar, which is contained at the very base. Its feet are going to slip down into some grooves that are in this flower. And it's really tiny, but let me see if I can get it here. It's right there. 2 little oval saddlebags that are hooked together in the middle. It'll stay attached to the hairs on its feet. And then as it walks around to probe other flowers, these little saddlebags can be deposited, and that's what actually accomplishes the pollination of this plant.
I had this idea that I would have this garden and it would have all these wonderful plants for butterflies, and I would have these little wild neighbors. So I have this garden, this wonderful garden, and the caterpillars are coming, the nectar is there, the milkweed is there, the butterflies are flying around, I'm seeing eggs. And one day I was filming this little guy, this little teeny caterpillar. The job of the caterpillar is to eat and eat and eat, then they sleep. They're very industrious. So I'm filming this caterpillar and he's being very cooperative. He's my little movie star. He's climbing around among the leaves. And all of a sudden, this ant jumped on his back and took a big bite and knocked him off his perch. And at the bottom of the plant, there were all these other ants. They were just waiting. I lost all my documentary objectivity and went to save this little caterpillar.
In the wild, only 10% of eggs survive to become butterflies. And you can make a difference just by having the habitat where the butterflies are attracted and where they can lay their eggs. Or you can bring them in and protect them a little more and get to watch them more closely.
Well, monarchs, for me, have been almost like a symbol of the richness of the environment that I live in. And I grew up in the country, and there were monarchs and meadowlarks everywhere. And I had a little girl. I would go and take the monarch caterpillar and put it in a jar with a branch, a horizontal branch coming off it. Every day we'd go find a milkweed and put it in the jar for the caterpillar to eat, and it would eat and eat and eat and eat and grow, and then, of course, make a chrysalis. And one time we came in, and it was in the process of doing that. And it was so amazing because it was like a birthing. It was convulsing up into itself over and over. And we watched and watched. Finally, we went to bed. And in the morning, there was that beautiful chrysalis. And on the table underneath was just the littlest husk of the caterpillar.
The new caterpillars, they love to crawl up into the crown of the plant when they're really tiny, and they're so hard to see when they're in there. If they're just on the leaf, they're a whole lot easier to see. Oh, here's one. Ta-da! There are predators out here, so if you take them inside, you can keep them safe from the predators, but you have to be really faithful about giving them fresh milkweed to eat. Now I'm going to put this really little guy in here where my other really little ones are. There is one egg on this leaf. The others that I gathered at the same time have hatched, so I kind of have my doubts about this one. It's just that tiny white dot there. So this guy, he's chowing down. He's really eating. And then there's a smaller one under the leaf here, and there's a chrysalis on the top. I'm a second grade teacher, and I do monarchs in the classroom, and I have for as long as I've been teaching second grade. And in the last 2 or 3 years, our curriculum actually includes the life cycle of the monarch.
I see one that looks like a butterfly will come out of it soon. Wow, we see. Oh my
It's
God.
just so miraculous. You start with this tiny egg, and the caterpillar comes out within about a month. It goes through the whole life cycle. When you see the caterpillar go up there and wiggle out of that skin, turn into the chrysalis, and then later when the butterfly breaks out of the chrysalis and starts pumping the fluids into its wings, it's just, you know, I never get tired of seeing that.
That's a monarda. That's one of their favorites. I call it the flower with the wild hair. Like my hair, always wild, in the prairie. Blazing stars are those tall ones right there. They're just starting to bloom. Look at this. Ooh, this one right here. One of the favorite plants for monarchs.
What?
It's a shrub. It's a lead plant. We burned and everything came up in gangbusters. All the flowers did, because they, you know, they get to a point where the grasses are taller than they are, and then they get shaded out and they don't grow as well. Well, once you have a burn and all the nutrients go back into the ground, the forbs go wink and get up there and bloom like crazy, and then it takes the grasses a little bit longer to get up. So then we have a good year for flowers right after a burn.
Good morning, Teresa. Jim Sturgeon. I'm going to lock the phone in here. Just wait for the cue.
This week is going to be a very busy week for us. Saturday the 15th is our big monarch tagging begins.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so there are two kinds of butterflies that we see here. We have monarchs and viceroys.
Well, the first thing is we have to catch the butterfly. And you have to remember that this is an animal that is going to migrate some 2,000 miles from here. It's usually 1,853 miles to the resting place that they go to, which is El Rosario, Mexico. And so they have very strong scales on their wings. So other moths and butterflies, not so much. So if you pick them up, you rub their scales off. But we can actually handle the monarch butterfly. So we catch them in a butterfly net.
It's a female.
We take them out, we hold all 4 wings together, and then on the monarch itself there is a little cell called the discal cell that looks kind of like a mitten. And you put the little tag on the mitten, which is the forewing.
All right, you ready?
And that's what you do. You hold it and then you send it on its way.
Get in.
How cool is that, Meridian? He likes you. He doesn't want to fly away from you. What do you think?
I think it's a girl.
Yep,
it's a girl.
It's a girl. It flew right into your nose after all.
It's an amazing animal. A very amazing animal.
Take off your hat or you put on your hat. Hang on. Oh, let me get a shot.
Ready?
Nice. He's gonna poke you in the eye. Bailey, step back, please. Okay, go over towards that way, so you can like let him go in the safe zone.
Oh, he likes my hair.
You want to take him off?
No, he's good. He's fun.
Oh, there
it goes.
Ooh, how many do you have?
7, 8, 9 short.
9 short of how many?
100.
Wow.
I know. And last year for the whole season we had 50. So we're doing well.
Yay.
For the first day, we're pretty happy with that number. Oh, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're only 3 shy of 100.
Great.
Yeah, we might make 100. I might stay and catch butterflies myself. So, thank you.
Butterflies were the most tangible way that I could really touch nature.
Just make a shot in here.
They were approachable, they were colorful, they were filled with the vivid expressions of life. Maplewood is uniquely situated on the edge of the prairie and on the edge of the hardwood forest, the eastern deciduous hardwood forest. As we listen right now, you can hear woodland songbirds on one side of the road, and on the other side of the road, if you lean enough, you can hear prairie birds. This landscape is in the process of a major restoration. We're using a number of processes, including prescribed burning, planting of new seeds. The prescribed burn this spring really has invigorated this unit.
Hi there. I think we're lost and we haven't even pitched our tents yet.
Okay, who you look?
Campground.
Monarchs inhabit a lot of different areas, and I think the fact that they are migrating, they traverse a lot of different types of habitats. We encounter them in city parks, in our backyard, we see them in woodland edges, but prairies with a diversity of plant life provides a wide variety of opportunities to find refuge, to find the host plants that they need. Here at Maplewood, we are blessed with not only, the beautiful fall-colored leaves of the maple hardwood forest, but we have these colorful prairies and the prairie grasses that can sometimes be 4 and 5, 6 feet tall. Imagine monarch butterflies that migrate through that landscape, that touch and stop and rest, bless us with their visit, and then head south. It's an amazing mix of natural wonder.
So today we're going to take a look at your larva that you have in your habitat, and I would like you to tell me what you observed, because we are called what? Charlie?
Entomologists.
Entomologists. Yeah, they study insects and bugs. And what are we studying right now?
Monarchs and monarch butterflies.
Good. I would like kids to be self-directed lifelong learners and be stewards of the earth. And so in order to do that, I thought a great way to do that would be to raise monarchs. And what do you think is happening? He's starting to climb to the top.
He's going to go into a shade form soon.
How do you know?
Because he's eating more. He was dancing.
He was dancing. Yeah, we call it the J dance. I think that kids just have a natural curiosity. They just love to watch things and to investigate. And I love when they tell me years later that they have taught someone else about that. We teach our kindergarten buddies about it.
We have caterpillars for you guys. They only eat milkweed. Like, they won't eat any other type of leaf. Make sure it's not sprayed. Like, if you're by a farm, you probably shouldn't bring it in. It stays in its larva stage for about 2 weeks, and then it goes into a chrysalis or a pupa, and it hatches out to be a butterfly.
Should we tell them we will take care of them really well?
We'll take care of them really well.
There are many options for where we can put monarch habitat. Most of the habitat that we lost was lost from agricultural areas. So while monarchs can find and use gardens and suburbs and cities, it's really important that we have habitat for them out in the agricultural landscape as well. So the more people that understand the story and the more people that are putting in habitat in their gardens, working with nature centers, working with roadside managers, clearly we can get more milkweed in a bigger space, so bigger spaces are better, but monarchs can find and use very small spaces.
So we're going to plant some forbs and some additional prairie grasses on an acre of land here. This is a piece that's right adjacent to the beehives, and so we're going to add forbs to this to provide forage for the bees and for butterflies.
This is going to go out.
What all is in there?
This has got black-eyed Susan, purple and white prairie clover, lead plant. I'm going to do this part, I thought. Oxeye, daisy, vervain.
Hang on a second.
A couple of asters.
Yeah, like that. That'll fall down evenly.
I love flowers. I love to be able to go out there. It's sort of like an aha moment. Ah, there's a vervain, or there's a purple coneflower, or there's a purple prairie clover. It's so cool. We're putting in a lot of different plants.
It's about 1 seed per square inch.
Perfect.
And we'll see which ones survive.
Well, we've had bees since probably 1981, and it's been increasingly difficult to keep bees alive, and we're not really sure why.
So are these honeybees? Or?
Yep, and I think there's a certain humility that is necessary. You know, the idea that we don't really understand how things are completely interconnected.
The birds eat butterflies, and the butterflies pollinate plants, and the plants feed animals and birds. It's just all this interconnected web.
This is a farm where we really try to practice regenerative agriculture. So the milkweed and the bee balm and all of those fabulous plants, they're perennials. So the flower scape is more continuous over the season.
We do specifically manage our little colonies of milkweed. We grazed our goats early. Then the milkweed, we allowed that to grow back in. And the small ruminants do like to eat the leaves. So there must be something either delicious, or I imagine it's very deep-rooted, and it's probably one of those mineral pumps. I don't know if it was Labor Day or the Sunday of it. It's just so beautiful outside. And so a friend and I were out trail riding, knowing that the butterflies could be staging up. And I didn't see any magnificent trees that were full of them, but maybe 10 would just come flittering out. Caterpillar, caterpillar. Well, I guess your whole butterfly project, I'm sure, has really kind of turned all sorts of people into kids again, right? I mean, they're all inquisitive and starting to look at things. And milkweeds, let them be.
This is it. 12 salad plates, 12 bowls. The dinnerware is for a young couple who just got married, and a kraut crock. And they wanted it to reflect their farm. Some prairie plants, maybe a bird, maybe an insect. Considering how there's been a lot of thought about monarchs this summer, that little monarch there, I think he turned out great too.
What if the world itself is sacred? What if it's us that have lost our way?
Well, as a Christian pastor, the monarch is a symbol of hope. It's one of the symbols for Easter, a symbol of the resurrection. So to not see the monarchs is a diminishment of hope, I guess. But then again, creation is amazing in its resiliency, so we have hope that the monarchs will return.
The week before, I was sitting up here in one of the lawn chairs, and a monarch came and landed right on my shoulder. So I had a very special singular monarch come to me, which is in the form of my daughter, who is in heaven tomorrow. She's been gone for 13 years. Times when I need comfort, times when I just want to tell her something special. When the monarch appears, it's like her spirit comes to me, so. Nature talks to us in many ways.
These are kind of mini carrots. They're not supposed to be really long. So yeah, the good crop this year of milkweed seeds. Beautiful little scaling. And I'm going to scatter some. I do a little renegade planting here and there, but I think the wind does a pretty good job. I've seen more monarchs this year than I've seen in the last 10 or 15 years at least. And it was cold yesterday and kind of windy. So I found her. Forecast doesn't look good tomorrow. It's supposed to freeze on, what, Friday?
Hello.
Hi. We're going to have a weird question.
Okay.
We have a monarch. We would like to find a way for it to go. Monarch butterfly.
Okay.
So we would like to find a way for it to go south.
Okay.
Do you care if we ask around to see if anybody is going south?
Go for it.
So, right.
Yeah.
We need to somehow find transportation for a butterfly in a container.
Oh boy, it's pretty much.
I don't have a load.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to a little town called Corinth, Mississippi.
You must be from somewhere around there.
I'm Texas.
Oh, you're Texas, because I knew you had a South accent.
Yeah.
So do you think that would be something you would consider?
It's fine with me.
Really?
I can't I can't get in trouble with hauling a butterfly.
Oh yeah. They were everywhere in Missouri when I was a kid. We used to even, I think we had a project one time, we had to wash them, some of their cocoons, you know.
Thank you.
And the sun emerged and shone in the sky at the same time as the moon. The bats and the butterflies were really confused. They couldn't tell day from night.
It's not surprising that people don't care about butterflies. What is surprising is that we do care.
Invertebrates like butterflies, moths. It's all a part of the big picture, and we don't want to lose any pieces of that puzzle.
Butterfly effect comes from chaos theory, and it's essentially the idea that a small, tiny, insignificant action can have huge implications further down the system, can alter great events.
You can make a difference, and I'm all about one person making a difference.
There. Okay. Yep. The pollinators, these beautiful monarchs, the bees, the wasps, all of those creatures, you know, they are telling us something. If we listen, if we could but listen, right, they're telling us that our environment is not healthy for them. And if it isn't healthy for them, it's not healthy for us either.
So when butterflies fly into your life, they really are telling you a unique story.
For a butterfly, you know, profound change is normal. And for us, I suppose it can feel, you know, we can resist that greatly, but sometimes it just happens to you. Changes things for the better, and maybe they can be, you know, better than they ever were before.
Every monarch I raise is like a prayer. Every winged one I release is a prayer answered.
Butterflies truly are goodwill ambassadors. Their color, their beauty, the way they fly, they have healing qualities to them. It truly is a privilege and a gift of this good creation, of this good earth that gives us the opportunity to treasure even the smallest of the wonders of the world.